Hey everyone, Mrhappy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mrhappy, aka Mrhappy Mondays, your weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. You know, the lighting in here in the video is kind of weird. I'm doing this kind of like in the late afternoon after daylight saving, and I kind of like it. I don't know, something's pretty nice about this, I feel. But I don't really have too much to say, just a reminder that Tuesday did indeed find a static and will be streaming Ultimate pretty much for the next entire week. Meaning that most of the uploads on the channel are probably going to be progression clips or a kill clip if we happen to kill it in the first week, which I'm not expecting. I'm expecting it to go into the second week. We're going to be doing 12 hours on the first day, 14 hours on the second day, and 16 hours through the rest of the week up until daily reset. So we should have some pretty frequent updates popping up on the YouTube channel. So hopefully you guys are looking forward to that. Other than that, not too much else going on. My 5.1 schedule was completely destroyed, even with my my alternative of going to San Diego in order to make sure I could stream it. Didn't make it, so I was able to get much done. So odds are a lot of the 5.1 stuff, we'll wait till Blue Mage comes around, some Ultimate related stuff, and of course a review on Ishgard once I actually understand what the heck is going on once I'm done with Ultimate. But anyway, before we get started with the questions, of course, thank you to our patrons who have been supporting the channel, especially through the very weird times we've had as of late, where it seems like I can't catch a break. But you are all amazing, and you guys motivate me and bring me back. Doesn't matter what week it is, what it's about. You guys know how to really hit it right here. Also, of course, to our patrons of Darkness, Khuja, Jenova, and Kurenai Oni, who have been massive supporters over the last over a year now, about a year and a half at this point. So thank you to everyone, much appreciated. But with that, I'm sure people came here to get some answers to some questions. All right, right here at the top, we got one. Hashtag Mrhappy Mondays, hashtag one question. I see it's one question. I also see a lot of text, but that's fine. We ain't got to worry about that. So, hey, Haps, long-time viewer, first-time asker. How you doing? You doing all right? I'm doing all right. So I've been healing Savage content as White Mage since Sigmascape, and we'll be going into Alexander Ultimate when it releases. Perfect on topic for this one. It's going to be my first experience going into an Ultimate, and I'm very excited to wipe the Pepsi Man for weeks. I've watched a few videos of Uwu and Icabus, so I know roughly the difficulty level to expect. However, I have no actual experience. Oh, there's actually not that much text. I should have scrolled down more. My question is, how do you prepare yourself mentally going into a new Ultimate tier, and what should I expect while progging with my group, especially as a healer? A few members have Ultimate experience already, so just having an idea of what I can do for the group as a whole to make things go smoothly would be very helpful. Thanks for the great content. Have a great day. First of all, with the mentality you have, I think you'll do fine in Ultimate because you are already displaying a level head and an inclination to improve and to make the experience best for the people around you. That is an automatic great quality for any raider, especially if you're going to be going into Ultimate content. So you're already right there. Your mental is on point. You just have to be receptive to mechanics and to what other people are suggesting. Ultimate is very much a test of how well 8 people can decipher a puzzle and execute it on a consistent basis. If you can be consistent, and if you can contribute to that, or at least take in the information that others are presenting, then you don't have much to worry about. It's just like progressing on another raid encounter, just on a tighter scaling and on a tighter execution window. So just getting those snap decisions and, you know, just working together. It's just a harder raid encounter. So if you've got the skills to do Savage, you just have to commit to beating this just barrage of encounters that we're going to be experiencing with Alexander. So, but I think just even reading your question, I think you're all set to go, man. I don't think you need my advice. On to the next one. Hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. Hashtag one question. I forgot I even said that in the last video. Dragoon, hello to you too. Dragoon has one major source of clunkiness. Dragon Sight. Relying on a macro or a series of macros or swapping between an ally and enemy quickly can be annoying to deal with. Do you think that the Dragoon would feel better if Dragon Sight was repurposed into a pair of abilities, with the first being similar to close position, placing a passive buff on one ally, and the second ability activating Dragon Sight's effect on that buffed player on its usual 2-minute cooldown, being able to anticipate the same target every time, or adjusting to a new target during downtime? Seems like it would be nicer than relying on clunky macros or finding someone in the party list in between skills. So that's one of those things that in a bubble sounds like a pretty good idea. It does come with a few caveats. I know specifically the part you mentioned at the end where changing partners is a more problematic piece of that solution. For Dancer, you will almost always pick whoever is doing the highest DPS across the fight. For Dragoon, because you're providing a short window in which you are providing that damage as opposed to providing it the entire encounter, it becomes a lot more important about what point in the encounter that's going to take place. Now, I cannot speak from an experience point when it comes to Dragoon in Shadowbringers, but I do remember Dragoons giving like Bards a tether during their opener and then giving their more consistent DPS or their higher burst DPS the rest of the tethers throughout the rest of the fight. So it is a potential solution, and obviously you mentioned switching targets during downtime, which I'm not going to lie, close position is terrible at doing that. Not that you would want to anyway, so maybe slightly repurposed that could work, because I do agree, Dragonsight having this reliance on macros, anything that has a reliance on macros, I feel like is a point that Square Enix could do to improve. Even simple things such as mouse overhealing. I want to toggle for that. I wish there was a way for me to toggle if my spells are mouse over spells or not. It's a lot of work to do something like that on an individual spell basis, especially when it comes to developing the UI for it. You might have to add like a little switcher or something, but for this particular case, this is a potential solution. I don't think they'll do it though. Not that they couldn't, I just don't think they will. And on to the next one. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays on your channel. Hello to you too, by the way. On your channel, I've noticed you've been doing a lot of old content solo. Which job you've had the most success with do you think is the best for someone to try that as well? You know, if this was an expansion ago, I would have said Warrior. But right now, Paladin has just been an amazing go-to for the majority of the solos that I do. It makes the learning process, having the clemency heals a little bit more consistent. You can make it further into the fights a little bit easier and then map things out. Obviously, any of the big cooldowns such as Sentinel, Rampart, a lot of that stuff is shared across the various tanks, but realistically, clemency is such a big deal when it comes to getting through a lot of these Heavensward encounters solo. I'm still working on Zervin. I know A6 is possible, just maybe not at this item level just yet, because beating the DPS check is very, very intense. Also, A11 should be possible, though it requires very, very, very good timing, because Paladin does not have a shield they can apply to themselves. If only Divine Veil applied to the Paladin themselves after it was activated, that would be the key to making A11 even more soloable, although I think the DPS check would be a problem. It's just so powerful, man, and especially Hallowed, it is the one tank that has an invuln skill that doesn't have like a 1 HP condition. You know, Holmgang, you're going to go down to 1 HP if you're using it. Living Dead, if you go down to 1 HP with it, then you have no way of getting back to full, so it's essentially a non-option as a Dark Knight. And for Superbolide, you may be invulnerable and you may have things like Aurora and Brutal Shell, but going down to 1 HP is just, it's something you want to avoid doing unless a fight is just not very threatening. Thornton, for example, can be done by Gunbreaker, can be done by Warrior, can be done by Paladin. And then also some fights actually warrant having a DPS job that can kill the boss very quickly. Do it instead. Bismarck, I found that either being a DPS or being a Gunbreaker, Dark Knight, or Warrior is easier than being a Paladin, because I can burst down one of the ads a little bit easier. It might just come down to my personal skill as well, but that's just how I feel about that. And I'm sure more fights like that will emerge as time goes on, where going as a DPS just might be the better option if you can kill the target super fast. Next one, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hello there, General Happy. Salute. I got one question regarding the World First Race for 14, which will become relevant again on Tuesday for Ultimate. Oh, it sure will. As far as I understand it, the way World First Race works is a Google Sheet that Frosty, for those who don't know Frosty TV, who hosts the Mog Talk podcast, a wonderful Final Fantasy XIV podcast, creates and operates during the race, and Statics message him with the clear times and he updates the sheet. My question is if Square Enix themselves have a way of checking these places, be it World First, World Second, are correct. With that system, would it be possible for Static to kill a boss before the official World First, then tell no one, and no one would know the World First group in Frosty's sheet? Square Enix can track everything. They know when somebody has beat it first. They are not using Frosty's sheet as reference. That is for us as the community. We've seen this in the past when Yoshida himself has sent out official message saying that a group has defeated it first. Normally it'll take a couple of days before that that recognition goes out from like an official tweet or an official post on the forums, or even in an interview, which we've seen him sometimes issue World First congratulations on. But they can see all of that on the back end. They're always watching us from the back end, is what we've also learned when it comes to the raid team, although they do like tuning into the live streams as per their own comments. So Frosty does some wonderful work making sure we can keep track of it, but they keep track of it themselves as well. On to the next one, hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. Hey, Haps. Hey. How open do you think the developers would be to removing all glamour restrictions except for job gear? Sometimes it feels very arbitrary to have pieces locked to just a couple jobs when they look good or fit on such a wide variety of them. What would it take for more pieces to be wearable by all jobs without them being added later as a crafter or dungeon gear? So I am going to be making an assumption for this answer. This has not been something that, as far as I know, has actually been said in regards to this. I personally am open to doing it. The developers have specifically given the reason, and I'll say Yoshida himself has specifically given the reason, that it would be, and I quote, confusing to see a paladin in white mage gear, which is why I assume you said everything except for the job gear, though I also assume that Yoshida is referring to armor sets that just don't look like they belong on the proper job. I am personally of the opinion, this is not, they've never said this is not a fact, I just want it to be clear, that odds are the way glamour is coded requires specific jobs. Like, it actually looks at the code for the item and sees that, oh, only Paladin, only Dark Knight, only Gunbreaker, only the tanks can wear this, thus they can only glamour it. That is what I think is happening on the back end, and they probably don't have a great way around it. You have to remember that A Realm Reborn has left a lot of technical debt with Final Fantasy XIV, as it was built in less than 3 years using a lot of the old code that they had from 1.0, but placed in a new engine. So while that is not confirmed, that is my own headcanon of why it has not happened, even though we know they get this request a lot. They also may just personally not want to do it based on the statement Yoshida has made in the past, but we just don't know. We're just working on assumptions on that one. Next one, hashtag Mrhappy Mondays, hashtag one question. Hi, Haps. I'll give you my question and thought, and I see you've provided a TLDR because I scrolled down and, well, actually, it's not that much text. Again, once I scroll down, it doesn't look like it's that much. What are your thoughts on the lack of melee mitigation tools, particularly Feint? Been plugging Hades Extreme to get a bit of melee practice in for when I changed from tank to melee. For tank to melee DPS for the 5.2 raid tier and being unable to help with mitigation in a majority of scenarios kinda sucks. Been in a lot of parties where having that extra bit of damage reduction would have made the difference between life and death in a raid-wide AoE that deals primarily magic damage. There aren't a lot of physical raid-wides in the game, and most tank busters are usually invuln. So using the one mitigation tool I have as a melee has just been defaulted to mitigating autos. I know giving melee mitigation tools may seem a bit overkill in the grand scheme of things, but it feels terrible when all I can do is pray and know that the ranged, their mitigation tools are on the tanks or healers, have things under control. That's part of playing a team game. And that's what raiding, that's what 8-man content is. People have their individual responsibilities. The melees can provide, of course, DPS, but they can reduce any physical damage that is being dealt. Your casters, on the other hand, have Addle, which will reduce the magic damage that is being dealt, which, of course, is flexible as well to tank busters as well as AoEs. Your ranged will provide a damage reduction buff once every 2 minutes, and you want to time those and coordinate them. Of course, Dancer also providing Curing Waltz. As a melee DPS, in particular to this question, your responsibilities are as follows. Make sure you're feinting physical damage sources, especially auto attacks. Very underrated to feint auto attacks. It has been a lifesaver in a lot of content, so do not let that go unappreciated. 2, keep yourself alive. Bloodbath and Second Wind are 2 also very underappreciated tools. If you find that there are parts of a fight where your healers are struggling, or perhaps even you've gotten too far out of range for a heal, rectify those things using your own personal healing tools while making sure you're playing the rest of the encounter correctly. You can only be responsible for so many things as an individual job, and personally, as someone who played Monk, I always found melee DPS kind of in the same situation as you. I'm going to hit the boss and just make sure I don't screw up what the boss needs me to do, but other than that, good luck everyone around me. That's just how it has to be. Focus on your damage, focus on staying alive, and you're doing your job pretty much as a melee DPS, on top of those feints. Hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. Yo, Haps, hello. So I started playing 14 a couple weeks after Shadowbringers came out and recently started watching your videos. I appreciate a lot of the insight you have and how you try to take a step back and view the game as objectively as you can. Well, thank you for the kind words. I have a feeling those are about to be undone. No, you'll be fine, you'll be fine. So here's a bit of a lead up. I started as Scholar and played through the game in a few weeks. I kept maining Scholar as I stepped into Savage at first and then decided to try the other roles. Fell in love with tanking. Since then, I've heard something really often. Tanking's easy. My experience, I found tanking to be intuitive for me, but not necessarily easier than healing. You did come from one of the roles that does have quite a bit of responsibility. When a DPS goes to tanking, it's even more of a shock. Like, you came from at least a role of responsibility, like, it's not really, I don't know if it's easier, or it's just different, you know, it's just, whereas DPS were like, oh my god, people expect me to do things now, what do you want? Anyway, in fact, I found healing much easier, at least for me. I also hear things along the lines of tanks can just ignore mechanics. We call that tank privilege, which is making me wonder if tanking has a low skill floor and basically pushes all the effort onto your healers. A lot more going on in mastering the role. The actual question is, do you think tanking is the easiest role? I feel like the roles all have varying styles of difficulty, but maybe I'm biased against my main role being called easy a lot. Yeah, I personally feel that DPS is the easiest role, specifically melee DPS, going back to the question we had prior, because the responsibility is to just play your job at that point and not screw up the fight. Tanks often have things to worry about that other jobs don't, and it is, you know, relevant on a fight-to-fight basis. I remember when critical hitting auto attacks were such a massive deal that tanks had to actually plan around, but at the same time had to react to. Healers also had to react to those random crit kicks in the face from God Kafka and other sorts of encounters. But more importantly, a boss needs to be positioned, a boss needs to be controlled, and tank swaps are one of the most vital things, and if they go wrong, it ends a wipe almost immediately. Now, are those things inherently super difficult? No, but they are something that weighs very heavy on the responsibility scale. And so a mistake there leads people to feel pressure, because if you do screw it up, it is bad news bears. So, do I think tanking is actually the easiest role? No, but I think that given any sort of practice, you will feel that way about any role you're willing to play. Even when trying to look at it objectively, there's always going to be some sort of bias against the thing you know best, and whether you think it's easy or whether you think it's really hard. Next one, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey Haps, a long-time watcher, first-time asker, welcome. First video I watched of yours was the walkthrough of Amdapur Keep when it was farmed for philosophy and mythology tomes. My brain wants to never go back to that. Anyway, on to my next question. I apologize if you answered this before, but what made you decide to get into content creation on YouTube and Twitch? I think I've always had an affinity towards creating things. I just like to talk, and I'm sure that's of no surprise to anybody, because I'm very passionate about a lot of things. And when I'm passionate about something, my first instinct is to shout to the moon about everything I like about said thing, whether I hate it or love it, I suppose. So when it came to content creation, it was just a natural evolution. In college, I took 4 years in a computer science course where we actually had a lot of courses revolved around doing video editing and Photoshop and Flash, developing games in Flash and stuff like that. And so it just carried over into my interests. You know, I was one of the only students in the school in the last decade to do all 4 years of that class, and as such, my name is even hanging in the front of the school as an exceptional student in said category. I was, you know, made to work on the yearbook because I had all those years of experience and whatnot, both the movie form of the yearbook and the actual yearbook itself, as well as the layout. So I think I just always really enjoy doing those things, but it's definitely because I like to yap a little bit too much, and for some reason, you like to listen to it. So thank you. Next question, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. One question to rule them all. Hey Happy, how you doing? I'm doing alright. You doing alright? I'm doing alright. I've got a question about job balance given the changes we've seen in 5.1. I saw the word job and balance and I had to let out a long exhale. Now that there are 10k plus parsers for each job now posted on Savage and Extreme Primal Fights, I'm a bit confused as to what actually constitutes as balance in this game. Just looking at the bar graph and the number of differentials, obvious that Summoner is a bit broken right now, and I'm sure they'll adjust that, but Bard and Dancers seem incredibly low on the DPS scales, even factoring in raid DPS contributions. Well, keep in mind that FF Logs now calculates our DPS as the primary means of judging the job, so that way we can see what overall contribution looks like from one job and one role to the next one. And that's why you've seen conversations talking about how the 1% damage buff from bringing a ranged physical is sometimes in question depending on average skill level and the damage ceiling of the jobs that sit at the top, which is a fair comparison to make. When you look at the melee job performance, it's quite beautiful, as Samurai is back where it should be, with Ninja Dragoon being about equal in their overall contribution, and Monks slightly above the two of them. I actually just don't understand why ranged aren't able to do as near as much as DPS as the casters, for instance, with Bard and Dancer, our DPS being bumped to around Red Mage, for instance, and Machinist being closer to Dragoon. If Summoner was then brought down to, say, Ninja Raid DPS, would that not be a more balanced state for the jobs, or am I misunderstanding something about how this all works? I think you have about as much clarity as anybody has as to why they intend it to be this way, or why this result has become the common occurrence. So I will say that the hardest thing to calculate with our DPS, because let me be clear, in a perfect world, every job, every role should have at least a comparable R DPS. Now I know that factors in ease of play, mobility, and other raid tools, but in an ideal world based on just looking at FF logs and looking at those specific graphs you've mentioned, a perfect world has all those jobs really close together, with maybe certain ones edging them out based on those factors I just mentioned. That being said, we have to keep those factors in mind, and the reason why range DPS tends to fall towards the bottom is that they are a more universal tool that can be used by the party. Even Machinist has a raid-wide, a party-wide damage reduction that it can provide to the party, but it has no other tool, so it sits above the rest of the range DPS. Bard and Dancer both increase the actual DPS of their party with their individual tools by a fair portion, and even though those are factored into their RDPS, you also have to subtract what they're getting from the other party members as well, so it starts to even out, but they just sit at the bottom. You also have to consider things such as Curing Waltz, which is no joke. It is basically a free indom from your DPS once every minute. That is no joke. Even the Summoner Phoenix is not a joke. It's not anything you can plan around, but I'll take a free Medica 2 essentially every 2 minutes, because that's what it is. On top of that, you have Red Mage suffering from what we call the Resurrection tax, and Summoner ignoring that tax for whatever reason that it is, because I feel like they didn't figure it was going to be as strong as it was. There's a lot of questions right now, man. And you can tell that I'm trying to justify things, how they look now, based on these individual factors, and it just doesn't work. I don't think they've got the balance just right. I think bringing Summoner down a little bit from where it is. I think bringing Machinist up a little bit more from where it is. I think Red Mage even deserving a little bit. Not even, it could just be because Summoner looks so good that I feel that way about Red Mage. Machinist just needs to be above Red Mage. That's number one for me. So whenever that's happening, that's at least, good. But yeah, something's just not clicking with the way it all has turned out. And I think Summoner is the primary problem child in that mix. So whatever they do to Summoner, I assume they'll bring it down sometime in the next couple of months before 5.2. I think it probably just needs to happen, and then maybe everyone can be a little happier, but it's never going to be the case. It's a hard topic to really justify or talk about, because it's confusing. Next question, hashtag Mr. Happy Monday. Sup, Haps? What's up? Quick question, when the first paid DLC comes out for Borderlands 3, will you play it? Have a good day. Yes, I really enjoyed the launch of Borderlands 3. I haven't been a big fan of a lot of the nerfs that came, but they have gone on record saying they recognize that there's just some builds out there that don't work, need buffs, and, maybe we'll come out of the era of them nerfing things. They actually did throw a few pretty interesting buffs at certain things after nerfing everything in the ground since the game's launch. I also think the Halloween event, pretty cool. I haven't really had the time to delve too much into it, and the Malawan takedown, I think, is an interesting idea, but I'm not 100% sure how that's going to pan out, because it doesn't sound like an incredibly long activity, which falls in line with Borderlands things, but I don't know how that'll be received by the general populace based on their description of it. That being said, first paid DLC will be a lot of progression, a lot of new guns, and a lot of the things I like about Borderlands, so I'm definitely going to be hopping on that. That is without a question. Next one, hashtag Mr. Happy Monday. Short and sweet question for you. Hello to you too, by the way. Do limit breaks scale with damage modifiers such as trick attack, raging strikes, technical step, etc.? And if it does, is there an optimal time to pop limit break other than making sure you're safe for the next 10 seconds? No, it does not scale with any of those things. If I recall correctly, without researching it, I believe it scales off the average item level of the weapons of your party. So that means that if you have a Dragoon, for example, with an I-440 weapon, and you have a Samurai with an I-470 weapon, the Dragoon's LB3 should be comparable in damage to the Samurai's one, even though there's a massive differential between the item level of their weapons, because it's looking at the average of the party. Limit Break is a party tool after all. So that Dragoon 100% should be the one LB3ing, and it won't affect your party in a negative way. But if that Dragoon were to have a 470 weapon, the damage of the Limit Break would go up from the party. So don't worry about trick attack, raging, any of that. But do think about who is your best person to actually provide the LB3 based on item level of weapons, and then, how much item level you have. Just pay attention to the damage as it goes up. Next one, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Haps, how you doing? I'm doing alright. You doing alright? I'm doing alright. Do you think that Square will have an event for the release of 7 Remaster in 14? And if so, what content do you think will be in the event? Something similar to the 15 event. I don't think, let me be clear about this. I'm not saying it won't happen. I'm saying I don't think it will happen. I just don't know. Something inside me says they're going to do nothing for 7 Remaster, and I think that's a mistake. I think they 100% should. As for what they should do, I'm kind of impartial. I don't really care that much, unfortunately, because it's just going to be like an homage. It's probably not going to be anything as interesting as the 15 event, where there's like events taking place side by side. But for me, it's actually something a little bit different. As cool as I liked the idea of a 7 Remaster event in 14, these collaborations are rarely one way. And bringing something from 14 into 7, I think as much as they've done that with like Lightning Returns and 13-2 and 15 and, you know, Dragon Quest 10, and like they've done all these collaborations where, you know, one game gets something from the other game, and I don't want anything from 14 and 7 Remaster. I want to experience 7 Remaster without this without the immersion breaking weight of a collaboration. I just want to go into the world of Final Fantasy VII Remaster, enjoy it for what it is, and not have to worry about any fancy collaborations or cup noodle or any of that stuff, even with another Final Fantasy game. But that's just me. So if there is anything and it's one-sided, I don't really know what they'll do. But we have plenty of 7 stuff already in the game, so what did they even reward? I don't know, another hairstyle, another outfit. There's options, but I'm just not that enthusiastic about it. Next one, hashtag Mr. Happy with Mondays with Mr. Happy and Aloha. He's not even in here, so. We all know Aloha's a real star. Hello to you too, by the way. It has been a long time I've asked the question, so for me, I give you a cat toy that looks like a blitzball. He doesn't like that. He's not a big fan of that. He likes string, and that's it. I remember seeing you post some videos of Aloha on your channel several months back. Do you have any more plans to post any more videos of his fluff butt? He has to do something video-worthy, first and foremost. Now, I actually do post videos on my Twitter of him semi-frequently, maybe once a week, maybe once every other week. He has to do something interesting, and you know what? Sometimes it just comes down to me trying new things, like playing with a new string toy, or leaving my bathroom door open to see if he jumps in the tub and messes around in there, you know? There's question marks, and so I can't really guarantee Aloha content at any given time, but when applicable, yeah, sure. Next one, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey Haps, glad to see you're back home. Good to be back home. So this is a non-14 related question. No issues with that. This is about content creators and where content creators get their music from, as I would like to be able to provide music to content creators to use for outros and intros. I was wondering if you know the channels and methods content creators use to procure music for their channels. I've been learning music production for a while now. I've done some non-paid commissions for a few close friends where I've done exchanges to make music and receive art in return. However, I don't know the way content creators go about it. So first off, some people just use YouTube's actual library of music. They do have a pretty wide variety of things. It's not something I do personally, but it is an option that I know people do use. Another thing is honestly a quick Google search for stuff that is not copyrighted. You definitely want to avoid just taking music from things that don't belong to you. If used in short snippets and not as a general background music, it can work okay in the context of something. It can also bite you in the ass, as I'm sure if you follow enough YouTube content creators or their social medias, you will see times where they've been struck against for even just a 1 or 2 second audio clip that didn't belong to them. It's why you generally hear the same themes on most of my Mondays with Mr. Happy, or that very subtle background music in a lot of my more long speak style videos. That being said, a quick Google search for some non-copyrighted music. One that I've used is, I think it's called Purple Planet Eaters or something like that. It's a website that has not only some no-cost songs, but actually has songs that you can purchase a license for. And I do that. I do purchase licenses for a lot of the songs that I do use if they have not been provided to me directly from a resource that I know will not bite me back at some point. So those are the sources that I use. Are those the sources everyone uses? Probably not. I'd say my scope of my understanding for this is actually quite narrow, because I try to just stay in a very safe place, and it's a place I know. I don't adventure out and try to find new things very, very often, only occasionally. So that being said, unfortunately, that's the best I can do for you, but even just having a social, putting your music out there, even uploading it to YouTube and letting people discover it naturally can be a way to get the music playing into other people's videos. I would definitely make sure that if you're trying to get into music production and you're trying to provide these things, that anyone using them, you should at least make sure to ask them to give you credit in the YouTube description, in their videos, on the video, whatever. Just ask for credit somewhere, because whenever someone does hard work, they should get the credit they deserve. And that goes true in music, that goes true in art commissions. If you're doing art and you're watching this as well, don't let anyone boss you around. Your time is worth something. And kick some ass. Just make sure you don't screw yourself in the process. Next one, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays, hashtag one question. Hey there, Haps, hope you're doing well. And since I'm asking before Ultimate gets released, may your progress be swift and efficient. Thank you. Now on to the question. Over the years, you and Sly have had a variety of guests on State of the Realm, but what is on your personal wish list of guests you'd want to appear, no matter how far-fetched it may seem? That is a very tough one. I'd say Xavier Woods is probably a big one, because he is a big Final Fantasy XIV fan. He has done a lot of content for it on his YouTube channel, especially with his live streams. And so getting the perspective of, a big name star who's a big fan of the Final Fantasy XIV, I think would just be fascinating, because it's just not something we experience that often with Final Fantasy XIV. We didn't have the commercial with, the Night Elf Mohawk. We may have had Tom Holland and Hannibal Buress, who are two amazing people, do a commercial where Tom Holland becomes a warrior darkness, but we haven't quite had something where it feels like we are super connected to a celebrity who actually enjoys the game. And since Xavier Woods is publicly a fan of Final Fantasy XIV, he is definitely my #1 personal wish list as a guest. Other than that, unfortunately, I don't really have too much of an answer. There's tons of wonderful people who make content in Final Fantasy XIV, and the idea of including all of them is something that's always great, but I always just sometimes don't know how to incorporate guests into shows. That's why my show doesn't have as many guests as one such as Mog Talk, where they go into very specific topics and bring on a lot of guests that are enthusiastic or knowledgeable about that very specific topic. We like to cover more broader things anyone can get into and understand and be interested in, and it makes it very difficult for me personally to incorporate that into the show. Next one, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Happy, how you doing? I'm doing all right. You doing all right? You're doing well. I'm doing well as well. Long-time viewer, first-time question, so a bonus of, I don't know, bomb burger for a steak or both. Can I get a steak bomb burger? But for dessert? Anyway, that's not the question. Moving on. So I started leveling another job the other day, and the Aetheryte earrings got me thinking about all the gear sets I'm toting around. The rings. The rings. Do you think we'll ever see universal gear sets that use the same type of coding and just swaps in stats for the job you're on? Looking at you, Ninja Dragoon. I mean, how handy would it be to have one set of rings for all the melee jobs instead of 3 sets of rings for 4 jobs? Or more likely, we'll see stats change to jobs or bigger armor chests. You will probably never see items like anything you've just stated. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. Yoshi P has been very public saying that they do not want to do a lot of items like Aetheryte earrings. The main reason being is that since anyone who has acquired Aetheryte earrings, can have them, it almost entirely removes the value from 70 levels of items. And yeah, you know what? For someone who doesn't care anymore, I'm okay with it. And then obviously it's not something anyone can obtain. It was a pre-order thing, unless it's not even like a widespread problem. But he's not a big fan. He doesn't want to release a pair of boots that's exchangeable or scales with level, and then a waist piece, and then doing one piece that works across 4 different jobs. We kind of have that with the roles like slaying, aiming, fending, but to do it in the way you've suggested, I don't think that's ever going to happen. It also then dictates what stats those jobs are supposed to have, or how the dev team views it at the very least. It's already kind of weird the way the Aetheryte earrings pick which stats actually each job gets. So yeah, I don't think you'll ever see these things. I don't want to say ever, very lightly incorporated. Maybe another pre-order bonus. We get a ring, for example, that works like the Aetheryte earring, but I wouldn't hold high expectations for this. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays, hashtag one question. I gotta go back and watch last week's episode, because... Oh yeah, that's right, I said we had too many questions. Alright, well, whatever. My question would be about the endgame... Hello, by the way, because you did say hello. I will say hello. My question would be about the endgame culture of 14, particularly the fleeting nature of static groups. According to my own experiences, statics for Savage Ultimate only last 1 or 2 tiers, and then they are reformed. Many players hop from static to static. All the other MMOs I have played, mostly WoW, DSO, GW, GW2, had groups that have been raiding together for years, and it seems that is a common thing in those MMOs. In contrast, I haven't heard or met anyone who has been raiding at the same core group for years in 14. I've met people who said this is normal 14 statics break all the time. I'm just wondering, why is this the case? I would like to hear your thoughts on this. Thank you, and have a nice day. I've had a lot of theories about this over the years, because I'm of your opinion too. I'm of the opinion, statics guilds, whatever. They last for a very long time. But in 14, you can have one person raid every tier, but for some reason they move to a different group, like every raid tier or two, like you've said. Now, sometimes that's people needing to leave the group because they have life situations and it just isn't matching what the group needs, and that is a fair thing. And then sometimes the leader just doesn't want to put the group back together and everyone has to go find another group. Maybe that leader puts another group together at some point, and some people just want something new. Like they just want a new experience, they want a new environment, they want to meet new people. It's just this very odd situation where everyone in the raid scene kind of knows each other, but they also have all raided with different groups that probably have people that they don't know at all. I don't know, it's just really weird. I'd like to think that a lot of the people who play and are statics in Final Fantasy XIV are people who came from Final Fantasy XI, who normally would have this very like long-term friendship style thing, but they've outgrown it. If that makes sense. Like, it's just life circumstances don't warrant that kind of involvement much anymore. I honestly, after saying it out loud, I think that's complete bullshit. But, you know, I would like to have some explanation for you. I just don't. Next one, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. I see this one has a reply, so maybe I don't need to answer it. Hello, Haps. You doing alright? I'm doing alright. You doing alright? I'm doing alright. Quick question. Have they confirmed a deep dungeon for this expansion? Whether they have or haven't, what area do you think could be the deep dungeon for Shadowbringers? I was thinking maybe explore a building in the Amarok. So, to answer question number one, no, they have not confirmed a deep dungeon for this expansion. But you know how sometimes not answering a question is the equivalent of answering a question? Yeah, that's pretty much this. They said, they got a question that says, are we going to get a new deep dungeon in Shadowbringers? And they're like, it's a secret. What? You might as well just say yes if you're going to say that. That's an underhanded, yeah, probably in 5.35 if I had to take a guess. For the second question, I think it's going to be the ruins in Ronka. I think that's the most likely location. There's a lot of questions about the Ronkan civilization, and they're similar enough to some of ours that, you know, I could, especially with the main scenario quest that happens there, it feels like it's going to happen there. That's just a gut feeling. I don't think the Amarok, because I've got multiple reasons. One being that none of it's real, even though it's going to be there and it's never going to go away while we're playing the game. It isn't real, but then again, we have the Anidr, so, you know, that's technically not real, you know, so, you know, not really a good excuse. No, I think the Ronkan Ruins. I'm gonna put my money on the Ronkan Ruins for the deep dungeon. Next one, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, I know who that is. I've been using this. Hello to you too, by the way. I've been using a SteelSeries Siberia 800. Oh, such a good headset. But it's getting pretty old. The cover over the battery doesn't close anymore for one. Yeah, the 800 series is from like 2013. Your headset's gone a good time. I'm proud for that headset. That was a great headset. So I'm wondering if you could recommend a good follow-up model. Not really sure if I want to keep using a headset with a box, given that I only really switch between USB for PC and headphone jack for my Switch. That one's kind of getting a lot of static. Switching between these is also one of the cases that break the audio for 14, so I always have to restart it afterwards. Want to keep using a headset with a box. Oh, so well, I can't lift it up because it's currently attached to my computer. So the 800 has been essentially superseded by the what is it? The Arctis Pro Wireless. These are, for all intents and purposes, the Arctis version of the Siberia 800. It's the headset I use, and I love this headset. Exchangeable batteries, like actually, I think that might have been the 850 that had the exchangeable batteries, thinking back to that. But all the same, yeah, the H series became the 800 and the 850, or got split between the two, and now it's the Arctis 7 Pro, if I recall. I'm sorry, the Arctis Pro Wireless. So these are the closest thing to like an 850. They have the exchangeable wireless battery, which for me is a big deal. I hate having that wire on my shoulder whenever I need to wear it while it's charging, or just wearing a headset in general. Ugh, can't take it. Hashtag first world problems. So if you're just looking for a new wireless headset, there's that. But that being said, I want to use a headset with a box because I only really switch between USB for PC and headphone jack for my Switch. That makes me wonder if you'd be better off with an Arctis, like a cheap Arctis 3, because the Arctis 3 works fine on PCs, and it, you know, works for the headphone jack on the Switch, so it'd probably save you a bit of money. But I guess the question really is, I guess I don't know how you actually go about using the headset here, because then there's also the possibility of the Arctis 3 Bluetooth, which if you have a Bluetooth connector, you could connect it to like your PC and your Switch at the same time, which would be great for you, it sounds like. So there's a few options. Take what I just said there, see if you can piece that together and see if it if anything meets what you're looking for. But maybe I see the name. I feel like you could just ask me this on the live stream where I love doing my spiels about Steel Series. Next one, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays, hashtag ultimate question. You may not get this till a week after Ultimate at the early... No, I'm here. I got it. For curiosity for future tiers, when job changing from the current raid tier to for Ultimate, outside roles, range physical to caster, and looking for a prog group for that content, what is the most viable way to approach the situation, as you won't really have logs to back up your performance on that job, and likely 2 to 4 weeks behind on gear. Seeing as how all the recruitment I've seen so far ask for orange parses while linking consistent 77-79 for their own, while I can manage that on my current main, which for a couple fights, Bard in this case, it doesn't feel feasible in 465 to 470 non-full BIS, given the time curve to learn a new job's fundamentals and regards how they play within a certain timing window and downtime. Is the answer something so simplistic as join an Ultimate for a couple weeks in and take the time to fully acclimate to the new job, obtain BIS, and push what parses you can obtain pucks? So I'm going to take this. If you do not have BIS, don't go into Ultimate. That's it's the harsh truth of the matter. If you don't have BIS on a job, do not bring it into Ultimate. You are begging to be that one person who dies on AoEs that everyone else barely survives, and that is super frustrating for a lot of groups. As for the specific problem of not having parses on jobs that you normally raid on, this is a decision that if you are planning on doing Ultimate and you want to do it like the week it comes out specifically, this is really a decision that needs to be made way sooner than it sounds like your decision was made. And I know that's not how circumstances work. You know, it just doesn't work out that way every time, which is why if you can't do it in the first week, it's not that big a problem. You just need to keep doing Savage, get your parses there, and get your BIS there, and then transition that into an Ultimate raid tier team. Or join a Savage group and then see if they're interested in Ultimate, and if not, you know, you might have to, you know, separate yourself from said group, you know, goals not matching and whatnot. So that's all I really have, because I've actually not been in this situation, because I have committed either to a job or a role and BIS'd that role before Ultimate came out every time. Or every time a new raid tiers come out, that's just always been how I've gotten my preparation. New Savage tiers are a little easier because you just buy crafted gear, but you know what I mean. Like, I've just never been in the situation you've been in, so that's unfortunately the best advice I have. Alright, well, I didn't even keep an eye on the clock for that one because I've been in an unusually good mood today, and I don't know why. Maybe it's because Ultimate's 2 days away and I'm already hitting that dopamine rush. But that was every question that was asked, other than one that 2 other people answered, and so I just kind of let that one go. But that's going to be a wrap for this episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy. So thank you for asking your questions. If you have a question, be sure to ask it in this video in the comment section. Use the hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy or whatever hashtags are there at the top. Apparently hashtag one questions thing now too, so I don't even remember. I probably won't even remember saying this next week. But be sure to ask your questions in the comment section of the video below. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share. And of course, stay tuned for all the Ultimate stuff that's going to be popping up. I also want to say I don't know how Mondays with Mr. Happy will go next week, because if, again, I do have those 16-hour days, Sunday, I don't know when I'm going to have the time to record on Mondays. And if I do, it'll probably be live on Twitch, which, you know, is... I've done it before, but I haven't done it in a while, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. Maybe this is Mondays that we'll be answering 2 weeks from now. So keep that in mind. Anyway, thank you for watching. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share, and I will see you in Ultimate, the Epic of Alexander. Until then, take care.